Hey everybody, Adamsaurus here once again, back from my long hiatus to talk about more albums that no one cares about. Today I want to take you back. Picture it. 2005, the Warped Tour scene, the big shots. At that time, were bands like The Used, Taking Back Sunday, My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, Taking Back Sunday, etc., etc. All these bands are somewhere between good and just okay to me. But we're not going to talk about any of them. I want to also pull your attention to something else that was going on at this time. Back in 2005, there was a record label that I really enjoyed called Ferret Records. And they released stuff by bands that I really enjoy, such as Blood Has Been Shed, A Life Once Lost, and Every Time I Die. Now, the question might be, why am I bringing this up? And what does this have to do with the Warped Tour scene? Well, Ferret Records also had a band on their roster referred to as Boys Night Out. Now, being that I'm incredibly weird, I decided to check out every single band on the Ferret Records roster at that time because I don't know why, I just felt like a good thing to do at the time. But point remains, I was not all that impressed with Boys Night Out at that time, and I was like, no, not heavy enough. I was really into my metal and hardcore because I'm a man! And then, like last fall, I saw a copy of their album Trainwreck, and I was like, hey, I know Boys Night Out, and this is pretty inexpensive. Sure, I'll give it a shot. Well, you ever wish you would have done something a lot sooner in your life? That's how I feel about Boys Night Out, at least with this album, Trainwreck. Now, Boys Night Out is a Canadian post-hardcore pop-punk band. That's the reason I mentioned The Used, Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, etc., etc. earlier, because that's who they most remind me of, but in my opinion, they're a bit better. I know, blasphemy, blasphemer. I'm sorry. My opinion. But, a little history on the band first. Canadian band released a full EP known as Broken Bones and Bloody Kisses, and a full album known as Make Yourself Sick on Ferret Records before this thing came into existence. And I think this is more pop-punk than it is post-hardcore like their early stuff was. There's a lot less screaming vocals, a lot less just pop-punk influence to this. It's more of a alternative rock with, or I'm sorry, post-hardcore influence, not pop-punk influence. It's more of an alternative pop-punk type thing with a bit of screaming here and there. But what really sets this album apart is its story. Because you see, kids, Trainwreck is a concept album. And a very tightly constructed one, and a very depressing one at that. The story for this album sounds more like something that would have been written by Alice Cooper than a pop-punk band. It's the story of a man who it's the story of a man who has violent nightmares and then in his sleep one night murders his wife and basically just has a downward spiral into insanity and depression and just all sorts of horrible, horrible situations till then. The album is really, really dark conceptually, and I feel like that sets it apart from a lot of bands at its time. The only band I can think of off the top of my head that was writing stuff that was this dark that had like such a light sound to it was probably Senses Fail. But this was released in 2005. Senses Fail didn't release the album that their 2006 album, which the name of which escapes me at this moment. They didn't release that till 2006. And while Senses Fail had dark songs on their previous album, the concept wasn't as tightly knit as it is on Trainwreck. And I think that's what makes this album good. the sound itself that this album has, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The dark lyrics make a really weird contrast to the music itself because it's generally pretty upbeat and happy, but there are moments of melody and ambience that make the emotions really hit home, and there's spoken word dialogue from the character who's supposed to represent the man in question's doctor that also really drives home a lot of what's going on in the story. And lastly, there's a lot of female vocals on there. Well, maybe not a lot, but there's enough that's supposed to be the voice of his deceased wife talking to him, and it's just a crazy, crazy story, and it's a greatly executed album. I recommend this to anyone who likes mid-2000s Warped Tour, pop punk, and post-hardcore. If you're a fan of Taking Back Sunday, My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, anybody like that, look into this band if you haven't already. Don't be like me and be stupid and think you're a man and not look into it. I don't know why anyone would think that way. I was very weird when I was a teenager. But, yes, that is my recommendation. I'm going to be trying here, guys, to get more reviews out. I've had a lot of weird things happen lately, job-wise, so that's why the hiatus has happened. But overall, that's my review on Trainwreck by Boys Night Out. I usually talk about the album cover, too, but it's a dude laying on the floor with another dude looking at him, and I understand what that represents in the story, because there's a part that happens. The doctor finds the guy laying on the floor, but I can't really say I like this album cover, but I understand it. That's why I didn't really talk about it. But like I said, highly recommended album. More reviews next week, or over the next few weeks. I'll see you next time. Have a great day.